Joining us live in studio is Nziki Mkhize, who is a chief social entrepreneur as well as the founder of Mentor. And we're basically here for the fourth edition of our self-development series. Welcome. Good afternoon.
I believe it's been 4 already.
Yeah, that's crazy. It started just yesterday.
It does, and I feel like we've spoken about so much since. But good day to everybody.
I think for me, what has been most appealing is how every single theme is interlinked. The one filters into the other. Last week we spoke a little bit about purpose. How does that translate into what we're speaking about today?
Yeah, so today we're talking about emotional intelligence, EQ. So a lot of people know about your IQ, and you can get an IQ score. And generally, when you have an IQ score, it's fixed, right? You're hardwired for whatever level of intelligence. Yes, you can go to courses and programs and whatnot, but EQ is not fixed. So EQ you can actually work on, and you can become more emotionally intelligent. So if we talk about our purpose and where we engage and how we show up in the world, we then also need to think about how our EQ impacts on the way that we show up in the world.
I love that it can be worked on.
It can, 100%.
And I don't think we're really aware of this.
Yeah, so I mean, there's an organization called 6 Seconds, and they're like the global organization on EQ, and they're based in Dubai, but they're across the world, and they do lots of research around EQ, right? And the scary stats that have come out is that global EQ levels are dropping, right? So we're seeing that people are becoming more insensitive as a result of technology. We're seeing that we're more disconnected as a world globally, and these stats are consistent regardless of which part of the world you're in. So their initial goal was to have 1 billion people with increased EQ by the year 2030, and as they've tracked those stats, they're going, the world is in a bit of a dire place, you know? And so we do have to say to people, yeah, you can work on your EQ. You can be more empathetic. You can be more in tune with yourself and in tune with the people around you, whether it's family or colleagues or even just society as a whole, right? And that's something we have to practice.
Very interesting then about those stats and how they're dropping just on a global scale. I think we'll dip into that a little bit, but let's start with the description. For those who kind of always link, IQ as well as EQ, what is EQ?
So emotional intelligence is that balance between your personality and your ability to, and your personality being your hardwiring, right? So in terms of hardwiring, there's something called the Enneagram, and all of us are hardwired to be a certain type of personality, right? What you are is what you are, but EQ allows you to elevate through that, right? So if you know, I'm naturally a grumpy person and I don't get along with people, there are tools that you can use that can help you shift out of that space and be more balanced, right? So it's how you shift out of that. And the other side of that is going, how do I then engage with people? And it's that seesaw between your heart and your brain. So the emotions and your personality hardwiring, that is our emotional intelligence. So when I say to you something offensive and you process it, and you're tempted to snap back, okay, that ability to suspend the clapback is EQ. So your ability to go, I'm triggered in this moment, but I'm going to choose a different response, is emotional intelligence. The ability to hold your tongue when you want to say something hurtful is emotional intelligence. Your ability when you're in your feelings and you have things that you want to say, even if you don't know what those things are, your ability to go, hey, I'm not quite clear about what I'm feeling, but I've identified these things. Can we unpack this later? Is also emotional intelligence, right? So when we really think about it, it's going, if you imagine yourself walking this journey of life with both your legs, the one leg represents your ability to understand yourself, understand your triggers, what sets you off, how do you engage, and the other leg is to understand the people around you. So what are their triggers? And this is always beautiful when we look at community coming together, or we look at people in a corporate setting and you go, how do the different personalities play off, and how do we meet each other at the middle of this bridge? So it's not always for Uschaba to be the bigger person, right? If we're exercising EQ, both of us should be the bigger person.
Meet somewhere.
Yes, and unfortunately the person that has higher EQ is often the one who goes further on the bridge.
I wanted to say that when you're talking about the signs and characteristics on surface level, specifically in the context of professional settings, if one is able to, be the bigger person, for lack of a better term, that sometimes could equate to signs of weakness or how people perceive it as that. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a big thing about it, right? So sometimes when you are compromising or meeting a person halfway, people can go, oh, Shabana, we just know she'll be fine with this, right? And that's not the case, right? So there's boundaries that need to be set, and there is clarity that needs to be set up, right? You can exercise good EQ and also let people know that, oh, I'm not going to go that far, So I can say, hey, I understand you were offended by that. We'll unpack it when you're ready, but it's then your job to come to me when you're ready to unpack it. So there's different tools sort of that you can put in place that allow you to do that. And it's very important, if you are the person who's always meeting people halfway, to understand the difference between, for example, on the Enneagram, if you're a type 2 in the Enneagram, which is a natural helper, you will often meet people on the other side. Doesn't necessarily mean you have a good EQ, it just means you're naturally wired to help. Or if you're a type 9 on the Enneagram, which is the peacekeeper, you can also be the person who goes more than halfway because you just want to keep the peace. So you as a person need to be honest with yourself as well and say, am I people pleasing or am I exercising good EQ?
Yes, all right. Kingsley is in order to elevate one's career.
Yeah, so previously people thought, if I'm the most intelligent person in the room, I will get the job and I need all the degrees and all the acronyms at the end of my name, da 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 da. And depending on the context that you're in, yes, it is helpful to have all those qualifications. However, what we're seeing is that EQ is becoming the highest indicator for performance. So organizations are going, we love all your qualifications, but how do you fit into our team? And are you a team player? And can we rely on you in a crisis? Or can we depend on you to move the team forward? And people that have higher EQ are proving to be people who perform higher. And EQ is important because if you are good or if you have high EQ, you shift from being the intelligent person that's bogged down by numbers, systems, processes, or whatever. And you can kind of, look up from your desk and go, oh, yes, I'm in a team. And this is what the team needs to win, right? So if you are thinking about how do you make yourself an attractive employee, how do you put yourself on the track to get promoted and move into teams, you then have to think about, how am I improving my emotional quotient to be able to be a team player and to be able to be effective? As Kingsley was saying earlier on, those intuitive things, being able to read people and choose your battles, those are all things that help set you apart in a corporate team. And what we see, a lot of those things are also leadership qualities, right? That when you look at really good leaders, they are people who are able to deal with different personalities on the team and make sure that everybody moves forward together. And that ability to be agile, to be dynamic, sets you apart.
And do you find that employers are looking more towards EQ than they are IQ?
100%. Yeah, and we're seeing that in the top 10 skills of the future. EQ is in that space. So yes, there's the technical skills aspect, but a lot of employees are also wanting to see beyond critical thinking and quick decision making and so forth. How well do you play in teams? How agile are you? How adaptable are you to what's happening in the team, what's happening in the environment? And those are skills that people are wanting to now hire for. One, because they can be quite difficult to teach, but people are starting to see that in a globally connected world where performance and a big thing is teams are not these abstract things that exist. Teams are people. People drive teams, people drive organizations, and people that have good team EQ, which means that they have good individual EQ, mean that those teams are high performing, right? And that's what we see in really good high performing teams, and very importantly, high performing teams in non-toxic environments.
Non-toxic environments.
Very important word there.
All right, we spoke about the ability to